ProRevenge stories. This is a bit of a long story about the value of being professional and nice no matter the position you are in. Mods, I have had to change some details of the story since my wife's work is very specialized. She must stay anonymous and stuff like this gets around. My wife and I moved to our current city back in 2013. The standards for my wife's job here are different to the standard back home. She has an associate's degree and most employees wanted a bachelor's degree. However, nothing could stop her and she kept putting in applications. One day one of the employers she had sent applications to called her back. However, it was not to tell her she had gotten the job. Instead, it was the manager telling her how unprofessional it was of her to put in for positions that were obviously above her. In fact, I'm going to delete your email from our system. Please don't apply anymore. It's just a waste of our time. I'll send you a letter since you just can't seem to follow directions in my emails. My wife, after she got over her initial shock, asked the manager for her name. I don't see why it matters, but Ivanka Tulip. My wife said thank you and continued her job hunt. Sure enough, she got the letter in the mail asking her not to apply anymore, citing inability to follow clear directions. My wife held on to this letter. I told her to throw it away, but she insisted on keeping it. Eventually my wife landed a job at one of the biggest employers in the city. Not only that, but this employer was the main supplier of business to the employer that was so rude to my wife. Well, my wife is an extremely precocious and hard-working person and eventually got her bachelor's and then became the manager over her crew. One of the manager's responsibilities was to decide who to send business to. My wife told her boss about the letter and what happened and used that as justification that if this is how a business treats potential hires, then they really shouldn't be trusted with fire business. Her boss honestly probably did not care very much and just let my wife do what she does. Honestly, my wife is kind of a badass and it wouldn't surprise me if her boss just gave her whatever it took to keep her happy. Wouldn't you know it, the rude employer's business went way down. In fact, my wife would only give them business if they were the last ones who could be called. This led to the most awesome meeting my wife has had this year. You see, to improve relations, the crappy employer set up a meeting with my wife and my wife's boss and the Sty business's top management. They needed this meeting to show how much value they could add. The day of the meeting comes and everyone introduces themselves. Finally, MRS. Tulip says she is the manager and how nice it was to meet everyone. That's when my wife said, "Excuse me, I just want to be certain. Are you MRS? Ivanka Tulip?" Ivanka, yes, that's me, my wife. Oh, excellent, I am so happy to finally meet you in person. Thinking she had an in with my wife, MRS. Tulip was over the moon. My wife let them carry on and tell her all about how much value they could add to the business and how they could really help out my wife's employer. This is when my wife says, "Well, thank you, but unfortunately I feel that we can't really give business to an employer who we feel has some ethical issues that need to be addressed." Big boss from bad employers. Excuse me, we were not made aware of any ethical issues. What are you talking about? That's when my wife brought out the letter that was signed by MRS. Tulip. My wife then tells them that if they treat potential hires this way, then it was an ethics issue for my wife and it would be very hard for my wife to give them business. Since she had concerns about the welfare of the business, she couldn't approve any more goes to bad business than absolutely necessary. MRS. Tulip turned white and you could hear a pin drop on the other side of the table. My wife thanked them for fire time but apologized and went back to her work. We don't know if anything ever happened to MRS. Tulip, but that business has since downsized and has gotten a reputation for being a poor choice to send business throughout my wife's organization. TLDR. Wife gets Sty response from a bad employer, then the tables get turned when my wife is the one who decides to send the majority of Sty employers' business somewhere else. This is a revenge in multiple parts and apologies up front for the length. About 30 years or so ago, I was 17 and about to head to university. An acquaintance through my parents' church offered me a job working with him, learning to be a pizza chef. Awesome. I'd need money for uni and I'd already had a stack of jobs, so working hard was nothing new for me, but being a cook certainly was. My experience with Italian was limited to Pizza Hut. So I accepted that at the start I was a liability, not a help. I started work, and to start with I worked free. Cool, but when it got to the point about 3 months later that I was opening by myself and taking whole shifts by myself, well, I should be paid. I screwed up all of my 17 years old courage and confronted the owner, let's call him Nick, because that was his name. He huffed and puffed and tried to tell me how terrible I was, but I stood my ground and now I'm on minimum wage. Not bad in my eyes at the time. I worked there for another 3 years, through most of my uni degree, often putting in 30 hours contact at uni, 30 hours at the restaurant and 30 hours of study. It was hectic, but just became the norm. Towards the end I became a lot more savvy, and started researching labor laws, keeping records of my pay packets and end of year tax receipts, and realized Nick, and other co-owners, were screwing me. I wasn't on the correct rate, they weren't deducting tax correctly, and a couple of other accounting oversights. By then I was working with my, at the time, mate, let's call him girlfriend creeping dickhead. Girlfriend creeping dickhead. It was Sunday night. The place was packed, I had tickets all the way down my line, and girlfriend creeping dickhead and I were pumped. We had a new boss, who just bought into the business, who thought he was the king of the world because he was now a restaurateur, a right wanker, but after years of having to stay back to cook pizzas on World Cup nights for the boss's friends, or Christmas, etc. I was sorta used to the grandstanding chest puffing behavior. The night in question the new boss would not let me start the second pizza oven. Think a 2-tier oven. I was only allowed the top tier on, because it cost too much. So here I am, oven full, 2 pizza chefs running full speed, and we're only falling behind, because one oven wasn't enough and it was starting to cool down from being so full and open so frequently. New boss gets a couple of tables of mates in. Instead of just asking us to cook some comp garlic bread or whatever, he starts loading up trays himself and putting them in the oven. Not the worst crime, but because he had no idea what he was doing. Every 30s he'd open the oven to check them, cooling the oven down even further, potentially ruining the food we had in there and slowing us down measurably. I had the head chef chewing my ass out as his food was ready to go, but my food on same tickets wasn't. It was hectic and not fun. This garlic bread bandit has had to stop. Me, new boss, stop fricking with my oven. If you want garlic bread, just ask, I'll get it done immediately for you. New boss, what? Huh. Me, you're messing with my oven, you're cooling it down and we're too busy for this s. Just tell me and I'll make it. New boss, okay. Did he do it? Nope, he kept on. Cue the same conversation another 2 times, the last time I told him I'd blow my stack if he did it again. You see where this is going? He did it again. Now, after being consistently ripped off and abused, so many cookie stories from that place, for 3 years, my time was up there anyway, and this was the time to do it. I looked at girlfriend creeping dickhead and said, yo. We out of here? He looked back and simply said yup. We stripped our aprons and in front of the entire restaurant, Pizza Kitchen was in full view of the entire restaurant, threw them on the bench and told new boss we quit. All this, all these tickets, all the food in the oven you've fricked up, and your mate's sty garlic bread, this is all yours now, good luck. Then we walked out, got some coffees from the baristas, sat in front of the pizza area and watched him absolutely flounder. He had no idea what he was doing and there was literally no one else there that could help him. We could see food coming out from the kitchen, but the pizza on the same ticket was taking 20 meters or more longer to come out. Tables were hopping mad, we could hear the grumblings all around us. I'll admit it was dish, but undeniably satisfying to behold. That's not the ProRevenge though. The ProRevenge was that I'd been stealing my timesheet every Sunday night, photocopying it and then replacing it Monday mornings. I'd been doing that for over a year. I'd also told girlfriend creeping dickhead to do it. Monday I walk in and Nick was there and was furious at me. As I walking in you could see his chubby face turn bright red as he bellowed across the restaurant floor, "What the fuck do you think you're doing here? Get the fuck out and never come back." Me, "Nick, we've gotta talk. We can do it here or we can do it in your office, but trust me, you want to have this conversation privately." Nick, "Fine, you come with me then," desperately trying to gain the upper hand back, and he storms to his sty little office out the back. Nick, bulls, about how he's going to withhold pay and a whole heap of other illegal hot air. Me, "You done? Good. Here, read this." I hand him a printout of an Excel spreadsheet, a stack of photocopied timesheets, a stack of photocopied payslips, printed copied of the wage awards, all of which detail the amount he's ripped me off for. Me, "You owe me 6 grand. I'll take cash or a check now." Did I mention he and the other bosses had just been simultaneously raided by the tax office and that they and the business were all on thin freaking ice? Yeah, bad timing for Nick the dick. Nick, spluttering, wringing his hands, but I can't afford it. "Look, I'll show you my bank accounts," as he physically starts scrambling to find his bank statements. Me, "Nick, I literally don't give a s about you, your bank accounts or your situation. You owe me 6 grand today or I take all of this to the tax office and all of the other relevant government departments that will be very interested in this, because Nick, I have a feeling if you're doing this to me, you're doing it to other staff here as well, huh? As for not having the money, well, again, not my problem, but you just bought a new $60,000 Pajero, so if you have to run that down to the car yard and sell it, again I don't give a s, but I get 6 grand today." He literally teared up a little. I'm not sure why, maybe through frustration, rage, or just being screwed by someone he though way beneath him. But seeing a grown man who's abused you for many years cry at your hands is a pretty beautiful thing to behold as a 20-year-old kid. I got to check that day for my whole 6 grand, and yes, it cashed, but the best was walking out of his office with girlfriend creeping dickhead standing there who deadpan just looked him in the eyes and said, "Nick, we need to talk." And in they walked in to do the same thing. $10K he lost that day. The best part? A few of my friends at the restaurant caught wind of the fact that I had enraged him and asked what it was all about. I let them know how they were being screwed, how to take copies of all of their timesheets, and where to find the relevant laws. I know of several other people who did the same thing to him. And that was how I left the hospitality industry and started working in my field of study, never to look back. Hope you enjoyed my cake day present to y'all. This is a super throwback, but it still brings a smile to my face. Also, my writing sucks, so please excuse the grammatical errors. I was a rink rat growing up. The only day I wasn't in the skating rink were the adult and gay nights. Calm down, it was the 90s and that's literally what it was called. Friday night, Saturday morning and night, along with Sunday morning and night I was there. Hell, I didn't even leave between the morning and night sessions. I even went Tuesday nights as well. I was serious too. I dove deep into speed skating and not trying to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good and well known. Anyway, I'd been going to this specific skating rink for years and knew everyone. One day, it was right before I started 7th grade, the owner came up to me and asked me to go out onto the rink floor and tell some kids to slow down. I did and came back and he asked me how would I like to make $7.50 an hour, to which I responded, "Do I also get in for free?" He laughed and said, "Of course." Boom. First job and I wanted to be there anyway, so it was the biggest win-win of all time for me. To say I loved it was an understatement, and I did everything besides work the snack bar. DJ, skate counters, floor guard, janitor, hype man. You name it and I did it. It was some of the greatest times of my life. So much fun and the owner was super awesome. Also, we were paid under the table, so getting an envelope full of cash every week just felt like a bonus for having fun. To me it wasn't a job, it was pure fun. It also helped that all my friends were regulars as well. A few years go by and the owner sold to another guy who we will call Tim. Tim could be an absolute nightmare to work for. He changed the entire dynamic of the place and everyone felt it. Now, this skating rink was popular and extremely old. Lots of people all over the city knew of it. My mom and aunt skated there when they were kids, if that tells you anything. Some way or another the new owner set up a juicy deal that had the rink started making a load of money. On Saturday night from 7-11 it was skating per usual, but from 11-2ish/3ish was a club. A local hip hop station came in there with local label Swisher House and turned the place upside down for those few hours. Every weekend the place was poppin'. There must have been over 2k people in there on average, and at $20 per person it adds up quick, plus the snack bar would never stop turning out food and drink. We were making stupid money. Bonus. We also found some good stuff when cleaning up as well. Money, knives, weed, jewelry. It was awesome. So Tim has it made, but sometimes he would fly off the handle for little things. All of us weren't sure what his deal was, but he would explode out of nowhere and start talking all kinds of nonsense. I'd started to have enough because we all had worked there for many years without issue. One night he went too far. I don't like being called outside of my name. It's a respect thing. My own mother didn't do it and he for sure wasn't. For context, I was in 10th grade now. One night he was in some kinda mood and for whatever reason was taking it out on everyone. I don't remember the exact situation, but he started freaking out on me at about 11:30 p.m. Now, Slim Thug and Paul Wall were in the building that night, so the place was extra packed. While I'm more than usual, I'm sure we were breaking all kinds of fire marshal rules, lol. He went ballistic and called me every name in the book while I just stood there with rage building up in me. I'd had enough. For years this place ran flawlessly and everyone loved us, so he really didn't have a good reason to treat us in the manner he did. My plan was formed. I immediately gathered everyone else that was working and we all decided that enough was enough. It was time for a lesson. I assembled the entire crew and all quit on the spot. All of us. That meant nobody to serve food, clean, help the Swisher House people, or just carry out general things that needed to be done when 2-3k people were in the building. He was stunned, his tone changed and he became very sweet. We weren't having it. As an additional frick you, I called the other two people that were off and they showed up to quit as well. Tim had already reached out, so he assumed they were showing up to work. Nope. We left him with 0 workers on the absolute busiest of busy nights, and boy did it implode. He couldn't find anyone to work, so the place went to absolute S that night. The on-duty officer told him he needed to figure something out or he was going to close it down without workers. Well, he didn't. It closed down that night, and apparently without staff it got nasty. People started having sex, smoking, trashing the place and all kinds of stuff. Shortly after, the radio station and label took their business elsewhere, and not long afterward the place closed down. He lost his entire investment. This was very bittersweet for me because I loved the place, but he ran it into the ground. The building is still standing and I would love to bring it back to its former glory, but my pockets are deep enough yet. Maybe one day. TLDR, new skating rink owners treated employees horrible, so we all quit at the same exact time to leave him stranded. He lost a big contract with a local radio station and popular record label, which cost him big money. Rink closed down shortly after. I know this is probably the wrong place, but it keeps getting booted from our ProRevenge. I don't think this rises to the level of Pro, but it sure hurt the guy financially. TLDR at the end. It's kind of what the title says. I'm on a mobile, typos, formatting, blah. I should add that I'm not a great writer. I get my point across, but not with the panache that others do. Many years ago I was engaged to my now wife. Let's call my wife Anne. Her then ex-boyfriend was, and remains to my knowledge, a big jerk. I'm not sure why she dated him. Let's call him John. I knew that they previously dated, and didn't care. We all have pasts, including me. Anne and I clicked right away and we both knew we were the ones for each other. Anne and I are on a weekend getaway with friends at the beach. We go out to a local bar, there aren't many in this area, and we see John. A story within a story. Two for the price of none. It wasn't an absolute surprise that John was there because John was now dating one of my exes. We'll call her Melissa. I know, small world. Melissa had previously introduced me to this beach and it was a fun place. Melissa is the one ex that I despise. I'm perfectly fine to see or chat with any of my other exes except Melissa, and I wish all of them well except her. After I broke up with Melissa for various reasons, I subsequently find out that she was cheating on me, quite publicly, with at least one other guy, on multiple occasions, including when we went away to that same beach. Cue a hot, humid, beachy night. Lovers arm in arm. I tell Melissa that I'll wait in line for us, you sit and I'll call you when I'm near the front. Melissa thanks me by publicly sucking the face of a guy 200 feet away around the corner, unbeknownst to me at the time. After we broke up, Melissa's friends told me that story and other similar gems that made me feel quite embarrassed for being so oblivious. Anyway, back to the main story. I go to the main bar to grab drinks for Anne and me. As soon as I'm away from Anne, John makes a beeline for her. He tells them that they should leave the bar together and pick up where they once used to be. Anne says no, and on top of that she's engaged. John doesn't care. Anne reminds John that he is on a weekend getaway in a rented house hotel, with his girlfriend. John offers to dump Melissa. Anne declines and tells me this about 5 minutes after it happens. She asks me not to make a scene. Being that I certainly got the better of the two women in this situation, I figure the most appropriate response is to allow John to spend time with Melissa. Let them make each other miserable. Fast forward a few years. Anne and I are still married. John and Melissa are married too. They deserve each other. I have a new client that needs to hire a service provider for millions of dollars. The client has narrowed it down to two options. One of them is a massive company, but the contact name is John's name and I confirm with them that this is indeed John. I tell my client the story about John and say that you can hire John. I'll be professional, but you need to watch your back with him. I say alternatively we can still use the service provider and ask for John not to be involved and get someone else to be the point person. My client is more aghast at the story than I ever was. He is very traditional old school. He says he absolutely won't work with John or his company, and hires the other provider, which is fine by me, and they both do the same job and cost the same, so it's really a matter of comfort level with the day-to-day folks. I'm not sure if my client told John why. I told my client that he was absolutely free to explain why and I hoped he did, although I doubt my client would do that. He was too polite. Either way, John's company lost a couple $1 million, and John personally lost a very nice bonus, all for trying to sleep with Anne that one night. TLDR, my fiance's ex tries to sleep with my fiance and get her to leave me. A few years later I nix his company getting business from a client of mine, costing the company millions and this guy a big bonus. Hello ProRevenge enthusiasts. I was given permission to post this story on behalf of my good friend as she knows I can protect their identity and change details enough not to trace it back to them. I witnessed the aftermath and never suspected it was my friend's doing. Cast of characters: Lily equals my good friend, protagonist of story, known her since HS. Quiet, classic introvert but friendly and kind-hearted. Grew up with older brothers and a survivalist military father who instilled in her and her siblings to fend for themselves, important for later. Beth equals BF of Lily since grade school. They were close until the summer of fresh sophomore. Beth went off to camp and got close to Jill. For 2 years, Beth has been friendly, but only hangs out if Jill is around. Jill equals classic extrovert personality. Cool to be not cool chick. Beth is her crony while Lily is an annoying fly on the wall some days and occasionally fun on others. She has other social friends she hangs out with, and it's important to know that Jill has backup. John equals new junior student to their school. Military brat like Lily, youngest of 3 older sisters. Friendly with Lily until the incident. Note, this story has parts where an underage girl took Polaroids of herself for personal use. So for the sake of this Reddit post, she was clothed and absolutely not showing anything inappropriate an underage minor should be showing legally. There is your legal disclaimer. The incident: John had just moved with his family and started attending our local HS. He had a hard time making friends as he moved a lot, being a military brat and all. Turns out he had 2 classes with Lily their junior year, including PE. Even more, they semi-knew each other from their father's military service, and he was looking for a friendly face and Lily was it. Lily and John were seen at the local mall together, hanging out food places, and the rumors of them going out dating started to spread. The junior girls were fawning over this guy like no other junior existed. But John started talking to quiet Lily, to everyone's surprise. Lily liked John but they weren't dating, but the thought had crossed her mind. Beth, on the other hand, grew jealous of her longtime best friend and the attention she was getting from John and the rest of the school. She was soaking up all the lies and conspiracies of Jill, telling her that she deserved John and Lily stole him from her. They hatched a plan to frame Lily as this slut and hoe, no good for John. Beth and Jill invited Lily to a girls' day out that weekend and she accepted. The 2 girls brought their Polaroids, before digital cameras and cell phone cameras, and said they wanted to get shots for their memories board. It was a thing back then, just go with it. Jill had a BF at the time. The other 2 knew she and him had sex fairly frequently. Jill wanted to stop in a Conrev store, or the equivalent at the time, to pick up some sexy time fun toys. Beth encouraged Lily, who was reluctant but caved anyways. The 3 browsed the aisles, picked up sex toys, giggled at others, and Jill and Beth went in for the kill. They got Lily to hold up some sex toys and took some Polaroid shots of her smiling and laughing with them. A few weeks later, John is now ghosting Lily and being distant with her when they do talk. Lily is confused but chalks it up to issues at home. Beth and Jill are playing super friendly with Lily ever since the girls' day out, and she is none the wiser. As part of an inclusion-packed ritual thing, Jill suggests that each of them wear a super sexy lacy thong to school the next day. Lily is uncomfortable, but she went along with it. Went to the store that evening, bought some of the skimpiest lacy thong type panties she could find and blushed as she bought them. The next day Lily is flushed all day, realizing that it was PE day and she would have to change. Yes, Jill and Beth had the same class as her, but it was embarrassing as hell. She opted to change in one of the bathroom stalls and headed out to the field. The class does its laps, the teacher dismisses them for the showers, and Jill, Beth and Lily walk back together last as usual. John stuck around to clean up the relay cones as this was his task. So I'll paint you a mental picture. Our HS's payfield was far to the little tip of our L-shaped school grounds, with trees and a hill providing a natural barrier on the inner side and the back of the gym and lockers providing the other visual barrier. It was just those 4 still on the main field, with the majority of the class already around the main locker room heading to side entrances. Beth and Jill are eyeballing on either side of Lily, as she gets a weary feeling that something is about to go down. It happens within an instant. Jill and Beth grabbed the side of her gym shorts and pulled them down, while at the same time pulling Lily's shirt up and over her head. Lily's lacy thong is exposed as she screams and falls over. Jill and Beth are cackling like mad women. Everyone who is still within eyesight turns around to see what happened. Lily is mortified and quickly tries to hide her exposed body. To the students in front, they don't see much, just Lily pulling her shirt down and shorts back up from the confines of the dirt field. But John gets a full view of everything. The lacy panties, the two girls pulling a mean prank, etc. John doesn't come over to help but instead finishes his task and walks away. The aftermath word spread fast that Lily was pantsed at pay and was wearing a sexy thong. Rumors then spread it was for John. Then rumors took a mind of their own and suddenly Lily was seen giving John BJs around the gym lockers after school. That they had sex often. Lily was mortified by these rumors and Jill and Beth were eager to tell the story to anyone who asked to confirm what happened. Christmas season came and went and second semester started. John distanced himself from Lily as much as he could and they rarely talked more than a simple hello and simple greeting. Beth and Lily stopped hanging out with Lily entirely and thankfully they had no classes with her from February onward. Lily's circle of new friends began to grow and piece by piece Lily began to find out the full story of what happened. John was shown those Polaroid shots, led to believe Lily was a slut, not whom she seemed to be, untrustworthy. A huge thing with John, and the day of the pantsing confirmed it for him. Lily wore sexy undies all the time. Proof she was a slut hoe. Not someone to be trusted. Beth and Jill planned all of this because Beth liked John. They were now dating. Lily was beside herself with disgust and that feeling of betrayal. The revenge planning set up execution. Lily's plan for revenge began by letting all her friends know that she was just saddened to hear all this. That she trusted them and they did this to her. Sowing the seeds of I forgive them in her friends' minds. Lily spent a few weeks stalking Jill's house until she caught the one night she left her car door unlocked in her driveway, something Jill frequently did. The hidden envelope in the same spot she remembered Jill saying it was and left everything else exactly as it was. The next part of Lily's plan took timing and carefully worded notes in Beth's handwriting. Hinting that Beth wanted to throw a surprise party for Jill's 17th coming up that May. She dropped these notes through the vents in Jill's BF's locker while she asked to use the restroom during class. Jill's BF dropped the replies off at what he thought was Beth's locker, but was in fact Lily's locker that she never used except now. At first, it was just basic communication. Then Lily used secret communication to come onto Jill's BF as if Beth was interested. At the same time this was happening, Lily's plan was separate Beth and John by doing the same thing in reverse. John was the enemy according to Lily by not coming to her defense, not asking her anything and just believing the lies told about her. She refused to involve anyone else in her plan, for fear of getting caught, but she knew she had to get help. She asked her friend to talk to John about Jill's surprise birthday party coming up in May and if he was willing to contributing anything or help. Lily took the opportunity to slip a padded envelope that said 3 Jill and a sticker of a birthday cake on it into his backpack. At the same time, Lily's friend handed him a similar padded envelope that had a picture of a birthday cake on it. Lily is not stupid and knew how guys think. She knew he would just throw the envelope in his backpack and never open it. Even if he did, it would start the surprise early and nothing more. The final part of the plan was a two-parter as she needed to set Beth up for the fall. Lily had no problem slipping the final original empty envelope that came from Jill's car into Beth's bag. She never kept an eye on it and it was easy to do. The problem was timing Jill's BF's messages to the final lead up of damning evidence. Jill's BF was increasingly confused as all he saw was these short messages increase in steamy talk and then include a Polaroid close-up of what he assumed was Beth's bra-covered boob. Jill's BF, not waiting to be in the middle of a setup, came clean to Jill about Beth's note behavior. Then showed her the Polaroid of the bra-covered boob. For that what was in the envelope in Jill's car that Lily had stolen weeks earlier. Private stash of Jill she kept for herself and her BF that she knew where she stashed them. Jill goes livid knowing full well that is her picture. She rushes to her car and checks her private stash. It's gone. Jill panics and is confused as hell as to why Beth would suddenly do this to her. Wanting to know more information, she waits until the next day to confront her. Lily's plan is in full swing and couldn't have planned it better than what happened next. Word leaks out to Beth that Jill is super peeved at her regarding something being stolen and something about her BF. Beth is panicking, wondering what the hell is going on. She knows she didn't steal anything but knows John has been known to do so in the past. She meets with John during class break and asks him point blank if she has anything of Jill's. He is clueless as to what she is talking about. Not believing him, Beth opens up John's backpack to look for something and notices the 3 Jill envelope and takes it. Jealousy instantly rears its head as she opens it to find dozens of Polaroids of Jill's bikini-clad body in various poses. John is completely stunned, feigning ignorance, not knowing what the hell is going on. The entire school is hearing Beth and John fight over something and teachers have to get involved. The principal is involved, parents are called, etc. Beth is sobbing tears and Jill is beyond livid. Jill makes accusations that Beth stole her envelope and a search is conducted on Beth's possessions. Sure enough, an empty ripped envelope is discovered at the bottom of Beth's gym bag that had clearly been there for a while. Jill identifies it and Beth gets expelled. John and Beth break up because John can't trust Beth anymore. Jill doesn't want to hear anything from Beth and Beth eventually has to change schools her senior year, but doesn't do much good as the rumors follow her there as well. Jill and her BF break up the end of their junior year and John ends up moving away at the start of his senior year. Lily never told anyone this story for fear of police involvement, distribution of clothed photos of a minor, etc. It was only just recently she shared this full account of what happened all those years ago over virtual happy hour. I couldn't stop laughing at how I never knew, never suspected she orchestrated the whole thing and framed Beth. Goes to show you, do not mess with the quiet ones. TL. Doctor friend gets humiliated in front of guy as he was fertilized and misled. She plans a revenge a half year later by framing her former BF, breaking up their friendship. Ending the relationship of her former BF and the guy she liked and forced her to change schools. Nobody suspected it was sweet innocent victim friend who wouldn't harm a fly. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment.